That's so interesting that you said that. I guess that's so funny. I kind of don't really think about it, but when I first started, we always used the word ethical, and it's just completely because I'm really, I'm really funny about how you define words. And so if you say something is sustainable, it means it's sustainable in literally, it means it is sustaining something. So, you know, you might be using a fabric, or we might be selling a fabric that's not sustainable. You know, it's not made from sustainable resources. I can't even think of a good example now, but I can't think of a good example, but you know, we go through so much more than that. And I think the word ethical really kind of covers lots of different kind of areas as well. So not just about, you know, the environment, but also about the people that work with the products, the chemicals that go into the products, yeah, the end users, how you use that textile at the end of its life cycle. So yeah, that word really kind of summarizes all the different elements that we look at, not just sustainability.
Yeah, that's interesting, because as I, just before we jumped on the call, I looked at your website quickly, and you describe your business as a social business. So I think that ties in nicely with your also use of the word ethical as opposed to sustainable, because it's so much broader in a sense that you know, I think that a lot of people misuse the word sustainable.
Yeah.
And they don't really, and it's kind of almost become like a very single use of the word.
Yes, like a coverall. Yeah,
there's so much more to sustainability, let's say. So using the word ethical, I think places a different focus.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I agree.
So, you know, when you said that you were struggling to find materials, how long ago was that?
Yeah, so that was about 12 years ago now.
Oh, wow, okay. Do you think things have changed since then? Is it easier now?
Oh, massively. Yeah, massively. And actually, even within the last sort of 5 years, it's just wonderful to see. I mean, first of all, there's lots. I think there are more kind of new fabric shops opening up, and their focus is on sustainability and ethical textiles, and you know, minimizing environmental and social kind of damage, but also the existing suppliers who are out there are now bringing in lines that are more responsible as well. So yeah, definitely seeing a huge shift in that for sure, which is wonderful. And you know, designers can now make things that aren't restrictive, because originally you'd have to kind of work with the textiles that you could find, but now it's sort of like, oh, I want to design this, and then finding that fabric for that design is so much easier now.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of online shops now, and
yeah,
there's dead stock coming into the market, which is really interesting. Do you deal with dead stock as well?
Yeah, we do. Oh, I feel like I sort of don't want to talk about it, because it's a bit of a touchy subject for me at the moment. Where originally dead stock was like, the purpose was to do a good thing. You know, people have got this extra fabric that they are about to throw away, but I am kind of getting the feeling it's a bit of a like, it's a cheap win, you know, like, oh, I can't make it organic, so I'll just use dead stock and that's fine. And it's a bit lazy, I think, you know. And I think originally the purpose was to do a good thing, but now I think it's almost kind of supporting the people who are wasting those fabrics, instead of saying, you know, why don't you not waste those? Why don't you use all of it? It's now like, oh, well, actually, we don't have to use it because we can sell it on as dead stock, so we won't. It's kind of like propping up a really big problem. Like, I don't actually want to support that. So interestingly, we do dead stock, but the dead stock that we do is all ethical. So it's all organic offcuts or fair trade offcuts. So it's not just fabrics that are really not good for the environment just being sold on. So yeah, it's a bit of a touchy thing for me at the moment.
Yeah, I think you're right, thinking about it as everything. Whenever a new buzzword comes into the market, people find ways to misuse it to their advantage.
Yes, and it just doesn't feel right. Whereas originally it was a really beautiful thing and what a great idea, it now feels a bit, I don't know, actually. I don't know if I do agree with that anymore, actually. I think let's not do that.
Yeah, I was involved in a business where we sold off some dead stock from factories, leather in particular. And literally after a couple of sales that we organized, I was alerted by some of our customers that there were other companies that were mimicking, you know, what we were doing, the same format, which is fine. I never have problem with the competition, but I went to check them out and I noticed that there were tanneries who are obviously producing leather in their case, but then calling it, you know, dead stock just because they overproduced or whatever. And so for them, it became just another channel to sell. And I thought that was really key.
It's, I mean, the things that people do just never cease to amaze me. The same thing happened with recycled polyester. You know, the idea was we were collecting all this awful plastic waste that doesn't biodegrade, and what a fantastic way to get rid of that and produce another product. And then you had companies who were taking new bottles that had just been made and making them into fabric because then they could say it was recycled. It was just absolutely mind-blowing. And it's just like, oh, but yeah, the lengths that people go to is just,
it's a form of marketing, right? It's a bandwagon that they jump on, and it's a free marketing. Yeah, it's sad. So, you know, when you say about your fabrics that are organic, etc., what do you mean by that? And because I noticed that you've traveled, I think, before, you know, the pandemic, and maybe before you grew your
Do you remember traveling?
I do. But I know that you kind of found some indigenous communities and you went to the, you know, grassroots where people make fabric. So do you still buy from them? And when you say organic, is it because you know who the producer is, or are you working with people that have certifications?
Yeah, really good questions. Actually, there's a lot of questions in there. Let me just dissect it. So the first, working with Indigenous communities, that is like my favorite thing to do. So working with hand weaving communities and cooperatives, it's just like the most beautiful process, and being able to support basically, you know, crafts that are dying out is so wonderful. And that's probably where you know, what people know Offset Warehouse for the most is that we use really unusual fibers. So we have a lot of hand weaving communities that are working with things like pineapple and banana fibers, and I love it. And you know, the textiles that come out of it are just like, they just make me want to cry. They're so beautiful, and this, I just can't describe how seeing something that someone has literally woven by hand just fills me with absolute joy. So there is that. In terms of the how we go about sourcing and kind of how we know what the fibers are. So there are a couple of ways. First of all, working with people who are accredited. So, you know, anyone who's got organic certifications, like GOTS is a very big one in our industry, which is the Global Organic Textile Standard. And Fair Trade is also another one, and also the WFTO, the World Fair Trade Organization. So you can work with people who are certified. One of the things that we are kind of, I want to say, sort of advocating for is also working with communities that can't afford that certification. So interestingly, we were talking to someone about the use of organic cotton in India, and it's quite surprising, but actually the majority of, I don't want to say the majority, but a very large percentage of cotton which is not certified organic actually is, because that's just how they work, and that's how they grow, and that's how they take care of their land. They don't use really nasty chemicals, pesticides, fertilizers, herbicides, anything like that, but they just can't afford the certification. So in that case, we work with people with more kind of reputable sources, people that we've worked with for a long time, and it doesn't sound very, I don't know what the word is, it doesn't sound very legitimate, I guess, but you can get a sense of what someone is doing by talking to them. You know, you can just smell it off them. If they are legitimately trying to help the people that they work with, working with the land in a responsible way, it just pours out of them. You can't make it up. You can't make up how you're looking after your crops and your land and the people that work for you. If someone is lying to you, it is instantly recognizable. You know, you just can't talk about it in the way that would make sense. So there's that, but that's, you know, not for everyone, and I get that, and that I completely understand that, and that's why certification is so valuable.
Yeah, I'm like you. I'm really passionate about like keeping the crafts and working with the grassroots and with, you know, the weavers and the people. And like you, I know of a lot of weavers, factories, etc., who are really legit and have organic materials or really good manufacturers, but just cannot afford the certifications, because I don't think small brands realize, it's particularly the ones who spend so much time looking for these makers, right, with certificates and audits, etc. They don't realize how expensive it is to get it in the first place, but also to maintain it. But I'm asking you because I just wonder, I personally never really look for the audits and things like this. I much rather go to a website and be shown pictures of them passionately talking about the people they work with than just, you know, see a, you know, the logo of an organization. So I just wondered how important it is to the people sourcing fabrics from you. Is it like a game changer? Does it stop them from buying from you if you don't have the certificates?
Yeah, again, really, really interesting you talk about that, because in the beginning, I found that the designers that we worked with were very much like, I only work with organic, or I only work with fair trade. And it's much more malleable now. And also I have people who, after, because I give a lot of presentations and you know, talk a lot about it, some designers who will only work with the producers who can't afford the certifications so that they can support them, which is just such a wonderful change. And yeah, that kind of, yeah, the designers who are really educated in that way, it's just so wonderful.
But so tell me about the Sustainable Collective. How did that start? Because I know that, I think maybe from your fabrics and talking to brands, you probably transitioned to doing masterclasses. That's when I kind of came across you. And then I saw that you do fabrics. So how did that evolve into a collective, and what does a collective mean?
Yeah, so I guess because there's so much learning to do around this topic, around sort of being responsible as a designer, we just felt like we were getting so many questions from designers and brands, and just even kind of creatives making their own clothes, trying to get clear on how they could make the least negative impact with what they're doing. And I think it's, I mean, because we were one of like a handful of people that were selling purely ethical textiles, I think that's where all the conversations were happening. And so we just noticed this real hunger for knowledge, and like and also slightly worryingly, quite a lot of miscommunication, and also just like things that aren't true being said about different fibers, which is very concerning. You know, suddenly everyone's saying one thing about one fiber, it's just not true. So we trialed, actually about 3 years ago now, putting together a kind of membership platform. And every month we talk about a different topic. So I think the most recent one was cotton, which is an enormous topic. But you know, we've really gone through everything. So we even talk about different ways of manufacturing products. So we've gone through, like, you know, how can you make the most sustainable swimwear line? You know, what are the things that you need to be thinking about? Yeah, and so that's how it started, really. And so we've got a kind of free kind of part of the platform, which is access to all of the live events that we do, and also all of the kind of news articles that we write. And then we have, for people who want to go into more detail, we've got a professional membership, and that's £31.50 a month, which we're trying to keep as affordable as possible, so that everybody can learn about, you know, anything they want to, and you can dive in and out of all the different topics. Yeah, and it's just been really, yeah, it's been really beautiful, and it's grown really well, and people are really excited to see what happens every month and what the next thing's going to be. And we just talk to some really truly amazing people on it, and it's just been a pleasure for me, because it's, you know, I get to talk to all these amazing, you know, groundbreaking entrepreneurs who are doing the most incredible things that just blow my mind every month. So yeah.